Welcome to your stretching session. This evening, we are going to be stretching into our shoulders and our back. So I have two back stretches for you and two shoulder stretches. We'll do our back first and then we'll do the shoulder stretches. You'll want to have a chair or at least access to maybe the edge of a coffee table, maybe an edge of a couch, something that we will be able to use for our shoulder stretches. And then you'll want a couple of blocks. So if you have, these are always nice to have, the skinny blocks and or the thicker blocks here. And then at least a blanket, maybe two blankets. A pillow is nice to have nearby, and any other props that you like to use with your stretching practice. So let's start with our first stretch. It is called it's a block bridge. It's the block bridge stretch that we're going to do. So at least need one block here. If you find, so a lot of folks like to start right here on the lowest height. We also have the medium height. Now, if you find that you need to go on the highest height to find that stretching tension and that 7 out of 10 intensity that we're aiming for, I would suggest instead stacking a couple blocks or even bringing out the skinnier blocks and stacking those. When you have them on the highest or the taller height, the body tends to start feeling a little unstable, and that becomes super distracting, and then it's hard to relax into the pose. So grab your block, come on to your mat. Start by laying right on your back, knees are bent, feet flat on the ground. Take your block, you're gonna come into this horizontal shape here. We're gonna lift our hips and place the block almost right where the belt line is at, right the lower back. And you'll find it because you'll feel the back and the body will just feel supported by this block. Just take your arms out to the side, palms turn up. You can start right here with your knees bent. And we're going to be here for 5 minutes. I'm going to start the time now. So maybe you just stay here, relax here, breathe into this space. Really allow the body to feel or become heavier and melt down in towards the ground. So you have your block supporting you right here. Really stretching the front side of the body here. And then if you want to deepen the stretch, you can start to extend the legs long, and we'll start to get a stretch along our hip flexors as well. The hip flexors and the back muscles are practically best friends. They do so much to support one another. Arms can come out to the side, palms turn up. Or if you're here after a minute or so and you feel that you can go a little bit deeper or need to go deeper, you can extend the arms long overhead, palms turn up towards the sky. And just relax here, melt into this space. Deep breaths, long, deep inhales through the nose, and even longer sighs out the mouth. Really help to turn on and stay tuned into that rest and digest side of the nervous system, which we need to really deepen the stretches into our muscles, allowing them to relax and create all that extra space. And as you're here, just every so often scan the body, make sure you're not engaging any of the muscles. You're just letting everything relax. The body, as we're here, after a while, muscles will start to feel very loose, loosey-goosey, as I like to say. And just let gravity, the body take over and pull you deeper into these stretches. Got about a minute and a half to go. And at any time, especially with holding those 5 minutes, you're staying tuned in. When we start to get closer to the 5 minutes, sometimes we need to back out of it a little bit. So if you feel any kind of compression or anything in the lower back, you can always rebend your knees and plant your feet. Maybe stay there for a couple breaths or so. And then if you can, just re-extend the legs back into that shape you were. Deep breaths. The block ever feels too hard, maybe it's really difficult the lower back to relax or feel supported and stable on the block, you can always add some more padding by just unfolding your blanket and just laying it on top of your block. That'll give some more support for the lower back as well. About 40 more seconds. Good to come out of this. Just bring your arms back down to the side. Slowly bend your knees. Lift your hips up, remove the block, and just let your hips rest down on the ground and just pause here for a moment. Rest here for a moment, maybe for a couple of breaths. And then when your back is feeling ready, you can maybe squeeze the knees in towards your chest. You can rock side to side to kind of break up that stretch that we just held. And then make your way back up, however feels good for you. Good. Now we're going to move into our 90-90 pigeon pose. This is a great hip stretch in addition to our backs. Again, hip and back muscles are best friends. So they're really do working in one area really benefits the other area. So to set up your 90-90 pigeon, you want to take we'll start with the right shin in the front. You're going to take the shin so it's parallel to the edge of your mat, making that 90-degree angle. And then your back shin, in this case, our left shin, is going to become parallel to the short edge of the mat and find that 90-degree angle there. Now, any time that you feel, if anything's going on in the knees, or you feel maybe you are recovering from a knee injury or anything like that, just close the joint, the knee joint, the space, just close it more to help support your knee joint. But if you can, just slide the shins out, those parallel to the edges of your mat, and forming that 90-degree angle. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start our time here. We're at 5 minutes on each side. Come into this pose, find the length through your spine, turn your torso so your heart center is in line with the right knee. Keep the spine straight as you crawl out, 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 and over your knee, as if you're taking your heart center to lay on top of your knee joint. You can come down to forearms, let your head hang. Maybe you use a block to place your head on. You can also, a couple options with your arms, you can extend the arms long overhead, palms turn up, let the head drop, or maybe it feels good just to stay up on forearms. You can also stack forearms and let your head, your forehead rest on your forearms. Now, if you're in this space and this is just too much for the back, too much for the hips, you can always come up, right, and stay here. Relaxing here, letting the torso melt organically down towards your knee. And when you start to get to that space, then you can crawl your hands out and come a little bit deeper into the pose. You'll feel this a lot on the outside of the right hip here. And you might even feel it coming up around into the lower back as well. It's a very beneficial pose, beneficial stretch here. The feet are just kind of relaxed, but again, if you feel anything going on in the knee, maybe you've already closed the joint and there's still some stuff going on, or maybe it just feels better with the shin parallel, but the knee needs a little bit of support, you can always flex, slightly flex through the feet for the support there. And again, you can always prop up, try sitting up on a block, or maybe you're sliding blankets or pillows underneath your hips to support the body as well. Breathing here. About 2.5 minutes left. Another one of those poses that you want to periodically check in and make sure you're not engaging any of the muscles, really just allowing everything to relax. As you feel like you start to create some space, you can always lift up out of it, extend long through the spine, and maybe see if you can bring your heart center out a little bit further over the knee, almost as if you're trying to bring your chest down to the floor. And then allow the chest to melt, and you'll feel that stretch deepen on the outside of the right hip. Got 1 more minute. You take 1 more breath, and then slowly lift your torso back up. Maybe extend the legs long out in front of you just for a moment. Shake it out, punch above and below the knee joint, especially on this right leg, right hip here, and then we'll switch it up. So this time the left shin comes in the front, parallel to the edge of the mat, and then you'll take the right shin back behind you, parallel to the short edge of your mat. Again, finding that 90 degree angle in your knees. Lengthen through your spine, sit up tall, keep the length as you turn your torso towards the left knee, heart in line with the knee. Keep the spine straight as you crawl your hands forward, 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 bringing your chest out and over, resting your chest right on top of your knee. We'll be here for 5 minutes on this side, and then just notice which side feels a little bit tighter. In these asymmetrical poses here, we like to, it helps us find any of those imbalances. We're already holding these for 5 minutes, but if this side feels particularly more tighter than the right side, then you can probably hold it for about 30 seconds longer just to help find it in equilibrium or balanced out with the right side. But a lot of times just holding the 5 minutes will help balance it out on itself. That being said, you might have to use props on this side that you didn't have to use on the other side and vice versa. So just notice that, recognize that, honor that, and support your body where it needs to be supported. Long, deep breaths, scanning the body, making sure muscles are relaxed. You're not intentionally holding tension anywhere. Trying to find that stillness, keeping that rest and digest side of the nervous system turned on. The muscles can relax and start to stretch even a little more deeper each breath. Just over 1 minute left. 30 more seconds. We're almost there. All right, slowly lift the torso back upright. Slowly extend the legs long out in front of you. Shake them out a couple times. Maybe punch above and below the knee joint, especially the left hip here. Breaking up that tension that we created, that stretching tension that we created, holding it there for the 5 minutes. All right, so for the next two poses, keep a couple of blankets nearby, keep your blocks nearby, but this is where you're going to want to grab your chair, or if you are using the edge of a coffee table or even the edge of a desk, just make your way there. I'm going to grab my chair. And it doesn't have to be like a fancy chair or anything. A basic dining room chair works out. I just happen to have this folded chair, which is super beneficial for storage purposes. So for this one, where you may have practiced this in other classes or something that you like to do on your own, but it's a shoulder stretch where we're doing prayer hands that come up behind our head. So that being said, because we're going to be using our chair here, you might want to lay a blanket or a pillow of some sort across the chair so it's not so hard on the elbows. So you set yourself up. If you're using a couch, you don't need to worry about. In fact, couch cushions would probably be awesome for this one that we're going to do right now, but we just use lots of props. And of course, you can always adjust as we're coming into it. So sit behind your chair, or I guess in front of your chair, however you have it facing you. Just give yourself some space, and you'll have to kind of wiggle in and out of this pose to find this stretch. But we're going to come up, we're going to take our elbows to the edge of our chair here, and about shoulder width apart, take them into prayer hands. Scoot your butt back. I like to tuck my toes here. You do whatever feels the best for you. But it's not so much about dropping our bum towards our heels on this one. We're still going to have a lot of the load into our shoulders so we can stretch into the shoulders. So again, we're just going to start to get into it so that we can kind of play around with it and find that stretch. So as you're coming into it, you might have to walk your elbows out closer to the edges of the chair. You might have to scoot your hips back more to find the stretch, but you're going to make the space. Hands come together and they scoot back enough so that your head can drop down in between your arms. Forearms can stay straight up, or maybe you start to bring them back towards as if you're trying to take the thumbs to your shoulder blades. We're not going to touch back there, but just moving the hands back and moving the hips back will help deepen the stretch. So let me get this. We're going to be here for 5 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get this clock going here. And as you're here too, it's really easy. I feel my back already starting to do it. There might be a little bit of a tilt in the back, but you don't want to have all of the emphasis in the lower back or compression into the lower back. So you might feel a little bit of a tilt or a little bit of a dip in the lower back. But if you're here and you start to feel any tension or compression, all you do is slightly tuck your hips or your pelvis under, shift the weight forward, and then allow the chest to drop straight down, not moving anything else. So again, when you start getting into this, this is a little intense, taking lots of deep breaths here. This is a movement or a shape that we're putting our shoulders in. We don't do this a whole lot. So it might feel a little tight in the beginning. Just taking those deep breaths, really emphasizing the exhale, allowing those muscles to relax the best that they can. We hold a lot of tension and stress in our shoulders. So we start getting into that space where we're trying to open it up, starts to wake some things up in the body. And again, just using those deep breaths will communicate with the body. It's okay. All is good. It's okay. It's okay to relax. It's okay to let go. We're safe. The body's just trying to keep us safe from harm. And also, when it's really, really uncomfortable or really hard, this one is hard, the body's going to do some stuff just to get us out of it. It doesn't like it. But again, deep breath. You need to deepen this stretch. You just simply walk the hips or the knees back a little bit more. Or maybe it feels good where you're at. You can always separate the palms. So you just have the fingertips touch and the palms move away. That deepens the stretch. Otherwise, just keep your palms together, fingers spread. Allow the chest and the head to drop down just until you find that stretch. Now about 2 more minutes. We already made it through 3 minutes. Might feel the tension now. We'll definitely feel it when we come out of it here in a little bit. Maybe check in with the lower back that you're not overarching by too much. If you are, just slightly tuck the pelvis under. We try to keep our neck neutralized in this one. If you have it hang too much, it's almost too much for the neck. So it's almost like the neck and your back is in a straight line and it all lowers and drops together. Staying in that straight line. About 45 more seconds. All right. So to come out of this, just lift up first. Lift up, maybe scoot your knees in, scoot your knees in, scoot your knees in, scoot your knees in. And then slowly release the arms. Shake it out, shake it out. Whew. All right. One more. These shoulder stretches are a little crazy. All right. So this one that we're going to do is a single armed cliffhanger pose. We're going to use the chair here. Now, height does make a difference for this pose. So this height of our chair, or my chair, for example, might be too low. So there's a couple things you can do. You can go to, maybe you have a chair that's higher, or you can even use the edge of a desk. Like there's a desk right in front of me. That would be a great height. Maybe you're near something that has shelf space that you can place your hand on. You can kind of play around with it. Or if you have a chair like mine, we can simply make the chair taller and try using a couple of blocks. So I'll try to place them on. I'm just gonna kind of make another surface here with my blocks. I'm gonna try the smaller ones, the skinnier ones first, but of course, you play around with what you got. You can also use books, maybe stack up some thicker pillows. You can kind of play around with this one. So we'll start with the right hand. Coming back into your tabletop position. And again, you're going to kind of have to, you'll figure out the distance that you'll need here. And you might have to play with the distance or the height on your chair. So we're going to take the right hand. I like to take mine towards the center, but you can always scoot your blocks towards the edge of the chair if that's easier for you. And again, the higher, I might need to go higher for myself. Just have to kind of play with the height. The higher up, the better, but obviously you don't want to go too high. So we'll start to get into it. You can kind of play around with the height and the distance that you need. So right arm is extended long. You're going to walk your hips back and you're going to start to lower down. Option one, you can stay right here with the left arm straight, or option two, start coming down towards laying your forearm down on the mat. So as your forearm is down, this is where you might check in. First, right arm is extended long. Just kind of let the head, it's not going to hang too much, but it's just going to kind of hang out there. Fingers are spread on both hands. And then just allow the chest to melt towards the ground. You'll really start to find the stretch. You'll feel it a lot in the armpit area. Front side, shoulders, and the pec area, back side, all the good stuff. This is a really, really nice, yet intense shoulder stretch. Moving our shoulders into that shoulder flexion. Deep breaths here. Find a lot of these shoulder stretches that we move through are so great to do after lifting weights. Just remember these stretches, we want to do all these after exercises, after strength exercises. And there's just a common misconception. A lot of people think that this deep passive stretching like we're doing now is not really going to benefit them in building muscles, which isn't true. As we're stretching here, we're really training these muscles to stretch to what they think is their full length right now. But every time we revisit this, it's going to reach that full length, but then start to build onto that length. Trying to explain it without going too much deep detail into the science part of it. But when you start to build that length, it creates more space. That's where we start to feel that extra flexibility, but we also have that space for more muscle growth, which means more strength, which is super beneficial, not just for weightlifting goals, but if you practice with me often, you know that we talk a lot about the health span and doing things now to really help our body and help ourselves in the future. And just crazy poses like this will actually benefit us in the future. If you think about, when do we lift our arms overhead? Maybe you have a child that you pick up. Maybe he doesn't go over your head, but you're still kind of picking him up. We're lifting up groceries. We're putting stuff up on a high shelf. All of that is going to make it, these stretches are going to make that feel so much easier. Also, though, we're really helping, creating that space. We're also creating, the space for the muscles. It'll help us in the future with just not preventing injury, but maybe helping us. I guess if you think about if we're going to fall, maybe if we trip on something or we start to fall off a step, we'll have this strength and balance, built balance, all the good stuff to help us prevent that fall. Or if we fall, we don't fall as hard as we would if we didn't put any time or effort or work into our bodies, mobility, movement, all that good stuff. All of our poses are going to benefit us in one way or another. We're not just getting in these really awkward, uncomfortable shapes for no reason. We got about 30 more seconds here. Actually, we have less than that. I lied. We have about 15 seconds. Good. Slowly lift up. Oh, take your arm off. Shake it out. Shake it out. If your arm fell asleep, that's okay. Sometimes that happens. Shake it out. All right, so we're moving to the other side here. If you moved your blocks to the right side, move them over to the left. Right hand comes down on the mat, coming into this tabletop position. Spread your fingers. Place the left hand on top of your blocks or your table or your chairs, whatever it was that you were using. And then you kind of have to play around with the placement of your knees, scooting them away. And then again, option one, stay right here, arms straight, or option two, start lowering down, lowering your right forearm down to the mat. And just let the body drop. Here, relax here. No death gripping onto the block or wherever you're placing your hand. Long, deep breath. Maybe try closing your eyes on this side. You didn't do that on the other side. Now remember, when you're doing these stretches, don't think that you have to hold it for the entire 5 minutes. 5 minutes is just what we're working up to. If you can, just try to get to that 2-minute mark. That 2-minute mark will help really train the muscles, train the brain, the nervous system to relax and let go as we get into these shapes. And even if it's something, I know this one can get intense very quickly. So for this one, maybe if you're lower down onto your forearm, you can back out of it by straightening the right arm. Maybe you stay here for a breath or so, and then you try coming back into it, essentially building up that tolerance and training the muscles. But aim for that 2 minutes. You can. It could take weeks, and that's okay. But any of our stretches that we do, don't feel like you have to hold it for the full 5 minutes. We don't want to stress the body out and make it more difficult. It's going to remember this pose the next time. Remember, oh man, you made me hold it for 5 minutes and I hated that. And it's going to be even harder for you to get back in that pose and find that stillness and get the body to where it relaxes and allows you to deepen more into the stretch. The lifelong practice, you have your whole life to, I guess, master these poses if there is such a thing. Don't need to rush it now. We've got less than 2 minutes left. Deep breath. There's one here too. You want to make sure you don't arch to the lower back. You have a little bit of a neutral pelvis, a little bit of tuck, just to help protect the lower back. We've got about 45 more seconds. Deep breath. All right. Coming out of this, straighten the right arm. Walk your knees forward, forward, forward. Slowly release. Bring your arms down. Maybe flick your fingers, shake your wrists out, shake your arms. Whew. Don't be surprised if you're sore tomorrow. All right, those are your stretches. We did 2 back and 2 shoulders. Again, you might feel a little sore. That's okay. Thank you guys for stretching with me. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on the mat again very, very soon.